Thanks for listening to this podcast. You're only halfway through, so hold, stay right here. Just want to remind you, if you want to get all 5 segments of the Young Turks commercial free, these are just 2 of them. Every day we do it. So go to tytnetwork.com/join and you get the whole 5 segments, 2 hours, ad free. Do it now. All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Momentous Monday. It is the day before elections in 8 different states. Those are primary elections that will decide partly the course of the Democratic Party. I don't think that is a hyperbole. One of those states is California, and it has a great number of just Democrats that are running. It has California's Senate candidate, Allison Hartson, that you guys have heard a lot about, I hope. And that running against Feinstein, challenging the powers that be. I want to talk about that race in a second, not about the Hartson race, but about California and its jungle primary, because there's a panic going on. I'll talk about that in a minute. But no matter where you live in those 8 states, you got New Mexico, you got New Jersey, you got California, Montana, Mississippi, Alabama, et cetera. The list goes on. Make sure that you check out, what's happening in your state. Make sure that you vote. And primaries are more important than general elections. I've said that 2 million times, and I hope that people hear that, because that's when you get to choose an actual progressive and you're not faced with the lesser of 2 evils, okay? So that's all tomorrow, and tomorrow we're gonna have giant coverage here. The regular show, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, as we always do, and then at 8 o'clock we will start our election coverage of those 8 states. We'll be on for a long time. I hope you guys are sharing with family and friends and covering the elections. First of all, we're among the few that do. And second of all, covering it from a progressive perspective. We're the only ones that do that. So make sure that you tune in. And if you live in Los Angeles, I'll be on KTLA 5 tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. also talking about these elections. So check that out as well. Okay, now, later in the program, by the way, we got Donald Trump talking about pardoning himself and the insanity of that. Giuliani says he could actually shoot James Comey and get away with it. Amazing. That's in the program. I mean, we live in amazing, preposterous times, and so much more. So let's get started, guys. All right. So in California, we have something called a jungle primary. That is where you can have everybody running. Doesn't matter. They're all in the same primary: Republicans, Democrats, Independents, etc. And the top 2 advance to the general election. So it could be 2 Democrats, as it was in the last Senate race. It was Kamala Harris versus Loretta Sanchez. Both Democrats, one a little bit more progressive than the other. And that gave people a real choice that they preferred, rather than a Democrat versus a Republican, because Republicans are not very popular here in California. On the other hand, now some are concerned that this is going to hurt the Democratic Party in California. So we're going to get into why here. So I'm going to go to a number of articles here. They're from The Hill and Huffington Post, but understand that almost everyone is writing about it from the same perspective, and one that I think is at least a little skewed and a little wrong, and I'll explain why. So first we go to The Hill, Douglas Schoen writing, the chances for Democrats in the November midterms may be imperiled by a lack of unity, a shift in national sentiment, and the structure of California's jungle primary. So I think the lack of unity argument is total nonsense. I'll get to that in a second, but a little bit more on the jungle primary. So in most races, if you have about the same amount of Republicans or Democrats running, in a state like California, which is blue, that will definitely be to the advantage of the Democrats, because they'll likely have 2 Democratic candidates going into the general election, which is, if you're not used to it, is kind of amazing, right? Now, in some rare cases, it could be that a district that is predominantly Democratic can have a whole host of Democrats running, 20 Democrats running, and only 2 or 3 Republicans running. And even though the Republicans are in the minority, their 2 candidates get enough votes for only those 2 to move on, and all the Democrats are shut out because they split the vote in too many different ways. It is theoretically possible. Is this something that we should go nuts over, as I think almost all the national media is? No. And I think there's an alternative, and a different motive, an ulterior motive, if you will, okay? And I'll explain that as we go on here. I'm gonna go back to Showing at the Hill. He writes, with so many new candidates entering the field, the party lacks a real uniting message, and it will likely lead to an unpredictable outcome. The Democrats are struggling to set themselves apart with a unified message to voters. Well, okay, that actually could be really easily solved. What is the progressive message? Does anyone really disagree with the progressive messages? Medicare for all. Because even the corporate Democrats say, well, if we could, I mean, we can, because we have to agree with Republicans and we have to agree with our donors. But if we could, we would do single payer. Okay, so that's a unified message. So are you guys gonna run on that? No, we're not. No way, no way. Well, who doesn't agree? The Democratic Party doesn't agree. The establishment Democrats don't agree. The corporate Democrats don't agree. And I can go down the whole list. Legalizing marijuana, you poll progressives, massively in favor. Are we gonna run on that? Nope. Again, the Democratic Party doesn't agree. We would have a much stricter line on gun control if the voters were in charge instead of the Democratic Party. No, they don't agree. And remember, the Democratic Party recently put out a memo to their candidates saying, don't talk about gun control after the massacres. Oh, Jesus Christ. In every instance so far in this election cycle, the Democratic Party, if they have weighed in on a primary, whether it's the DNC, the DCCC, or any other part of the Democratic Party, have always, in every case, picked the more conservative Democrat. They have never picked the more progressive Democrat, never. So how am I supposed to unify with people that do the opposite of what they claim is their stated purpose? They claim that they want to get money out of politics, for example. The Democratic Party. So what do they support? In every single case, they support the candidate taking corporate PAC money and lobbyist money, and they oppose the ones that are uncorrupted that won't take corporate PAC money. Now, their rationale is, well, I need a lot of money, money. That's the only thing that can ever win a race. So that's why I have to go ask my corporate friends. And of course, I got to pay them back. I mean, Lockheed Martin needs another contract, don't they? And so do all the pharmaceutical companies. But why don't you unify behind my pro-corporate message? The answer is hell no to that. So part of this hysteria is about get in line. In California, the Democratic Party has backed some candidates in primaries. They're almost all uniformly three things in this order. They can either self-finance or have a lot of rich friends. That's priority number 1 through 19, okay? All of the ones they backed are rich and know a lot of rich people. And again, their excuses, well, we need the money. We can't do it without the money. We can't do it. Small dollars, getting money out of politics. No. Money. That's number one. Number two is former Republican. They love former Republicans. Am I saying you should ban all former Republicans? No, I'm a former Republican. Okay, but I left a long time ago. Some of the guys they're backing left like 3 months ago, left the Republican Party when there was an opportunity to run as a Democrat, probably with the same views. Number three thing that they look for is veteran. Nothing wrong with veterans, bless their hearts, but they're obsessed. It's gotta be a veteran, especially in Southern California. Okay, so they're backing a guy in the 50th district that's placing in 5th. He's in 5th place, but they're pouring tons of money into him and fighting against the guy who is in 2nd place and will make the runoff, who's very progressive. That's Amar Kampa-Najjar. They're like, no, Amar doesn't take corporate money. Well, he outraised your guy, even with all of your corrupt money backing him. Nope. Unity. Well, where's your goddamn unity? So please spare me the crocodile tears about unity because you guys are not in favor of it. And they showed, by the way, it's not just Amar's race where he's clearly the lead among the Democrats. Applegate nearly beat Issa. We're going to talk more about that race. That's the 49th district. Why don't you back Applegate? He's got more money and he nearly beat Issa and chased him out of Congress. Nope. He's not corrupt. Won't do it. Yeah, he won't use our consultants and he won't take corporate PAC money. So we're going to pour money into his opponents. And then you're going to cry about unity and you're going to cry about the jungle primary? Well, whose fault is that? It's your fault. But by the way, none of these articles point that out. There's no blame for the Democratic Party other than why didn't they drive the progressives out? Why didn't they drive them out? Okay, so you see where the mainstream media is coming from. Okay, so now let's go to the 49th district. There's two Republicans there. One, and Isa's gone, so they're looking to replace him. But that is likely to be a Democratic pickup if there's a Democratic in that candidate in that race. The two Republicans are Harkey and Chavez.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
So Harkey's apparently doing well. He's almost certainly, according to the polling, going to move on to the general election, and that's fine. It's a Republican-held seat. There'll be a Republican that's in that general election, right? The question is, will a second Republican make it or one of the Democrats? So let's go to the explanation from HuffPost here. Harkey, who's the leading Republican, is now considered a lock to advance to the general. But there are four Democrats battling for the second spot alongside Chavez, the other Republican. Businessman and veteran Paul Kerr, retired Colonel Doug Applegate, environmental lawyer Mike Levin, and Sarah Jacobs, a former Hillary Clinton campaign aide. And now Jacobs has a ton of money behind her. Her family's got a fortune, so they decided to buy that seat. So the 49th is a perfect example where they should have unified behind Applegate. It was literally the closest election in 2016 in the whole country, not in California, the whole country. He only lost to Issa by 1,600 votes. Afterwards, Issa panics and leaves Congress. So why not Applegate? Because he's a progressive. Because he's a progressive. And then they cry about unity. Please, please, please. Okay, by the way, there is no disputing that. There's no dispute of that. He was the candidate that nearly knocked off Issa. And in the beginning, before all the corporate PACs came in, he had a huge money-raising advantage too because he had a lot of small donors already. And he doesn't need corporate PAC money. He already had name recognition. He'd already run that race. He already had experience. And by the way, he's even a veteran. He's a colonel, right? It's everything the Democratic Party should love. Nope, nope, nope. Why doesn't he get out of the race? Are you insane? Why would he get out of the race? Well, he didn't bow his head to the corporate overlords. Why doesn't he get out? And then the rest of the media is like, oh yeah, yeah, they should. Everybody else should get out other than the ones the Democratic Party supports. Are you kidding me? Okay, now let's go stay with HuffPost. Talk about the money. A wave of spending, at least $8 million. This is all going in just into California primary races. $8 million from the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, Priorities USA, Patriot Majority, and the House Majority PAC. PAC. And guess who the PACs are supporting? In every instance, the more conservative Democrat in the race. Guess who the Democratic Party through the DCCC is supporting? Every conservative in every race. And what happened, Democrats? I thought you said unify and don't fight each other in the primaries. Don't spend money. You're going to waste the money. You need it for the general election to defeat Republicans. All of a sudden, your corporate asses are on the line. $8 million, pour it in. Make sure you defeat the progressives. Republicans are going to lose to them and still fundraise. Don't worry about it. But defeat the progressives. What happened? I thought you were going to take sides. All of a sudden, $8 million of corruption. Okay, so more from Jesse Hunt. He's with the Republicans. He represents the NRCC, grain of salt. And he quote, but I think it's an interesting perspective. Also, same Washington mindset. So listen to this. He says the DCCC, again, that's the Democrats in the House, by the way. That's their campaign committee in the House. The DCCC and Nancy Pelosi's super PAC are lighting money on fire right now in the hopes they can avert a catastrophe in their most focused on area of the country. Now, what Jesse Hunt doesn't tell you is that the catastrophe would be for progressives to win. And that's why Nancy Pelosi and the DCCC are lighting, quote, lighting their money on fire. What happened? I thought you wanted to save it for the Republicans. I thought you wanted to keep your powder dry. That's what Democrats brag about all the time. No, nope. Light it on fire. Make sure the progressives are knocked out. Okay, and Hunt continues, Republicans are in even stronger position today after Democratic candidates aired each other's personal dirty laundry and battled over who is most progressive. Now, it's in his best interest to talk about the dissension within the Democratic Party, etc. But wait a minute, Jesse Hunt, the Republicans do vicious primaries. They do it all the time. And I don't think it's hurt them. You don't think it's hurt them. The Republicans hold the House, they hold the Senate, they hold the White House. In their, take a look at the presidential run in 2016. One side, the Democrats, said, it's gotta be Hillary, Why won't Bernie get out? And they drove the other three out immediately, barely had a primary. Now, Bernie made it into a giant primary, which angered them to no end. They thought no primaries are the right way to go. They barely had any debates. On the Republican side, they had 1 million debates with 17 candidates. What happened? I thought divisive primaries were supposed to hurt them. No, just like in the House, just like in the Senate, strong primaries, yes, where they attacked each other a lot, helped the Republicans. It didn't hurt them. It is conventional wisdom in Washington, and it is utter horse crap. It's not remotely true. Republicans have primaried each other for decades now, and they have grown stronger and stronger. It's all a ruse to make sure progressives don't get any power. I don't know if you realize this yet. The Democratic Party at the national level is not remotely progressive. Oh, let's resist Trump with what? Slightly less. You know, Chuck Schumer put out a tweet the other day, he's the head of the Democrats in the Senate, saying that he looks forward to doing what after what he says is going to be Democratic victories in the fall? He says he looks forward to bipartisan compromise on health care. Jesus Christ. Resistance my ass. Okay, now back to the Hill. Douglas Schoen, another, Washington mindset individual here, says this level of vitriol and contention among Democrats is seriously hurting their chances at flipping seats and ultimately retaking the House in November. Oh, good. I can't wait for the data and the polling that indicates that. Oh, right. There are none. None. It's just BS Washington conventional wisdom. Democrats, if you just bow your heads, then everything is going to be great. How's that working out for us? By the way, I already told you about the national level. At the state level, as you know, they lost over 1,000 seats in 10 years. Over 1,000 seats. 69 out of the 99 state legislatures are Republicans now. And your idea of just bowing our heads to the idiots who run the Democratic Party is somehow supposed to get us more victories? Based on what evidence? None. Last quote from Schoen. To capitalize on the 2018 midterms, the Democrats in California must move forward with a moderate and inclusive platform that will bring voters of all backgrounds to unify rather than divide the party. In other words, just do what the corporations tell you, okay? Be moderate and work with the Republicans. What do the Republicans want? All they want is to serve their corporate donors. If I go halfway towards them, that means I'm going halfway towards corruption. No, thank you. Here's an idea instead. Run super strong, populist progressives who say, yeah, goddamn right, we're going to take on the bankers and the military-industrial complex and the corrupt pharmaceutical companies, and we're actually going to look out for you, the voter. And we're going to not take any of that corporate money so you know we're honest and we serve you guys. That is going to work much better. And of course, everybody in Washington with their pocketbooks on the line is going, no, don't do that. Then what if they don't give us money and we are out of a job? Oh, from your mouth to God's ears. I hope to God you're all out of jobs very, very soon. And voters in California, you can make that happen. Whether it's supporting Allison Hartson for the Senate race, a true progressive, or Applegate, or Rosa Calderon, or Caforio, or so many others that are wonderful in this race. Please check out justdemocrats.com to see who the uncorrupted are and who the true progressives are. And not just in California, but in all the states that are coming up tomorrow. That's June 5th. New Mexico, New Jersey, so many other states are running and so many candidates in those states as well. Or go to your local progressive group that you trust. Our Revolution, PCCC, Working Families Party. We actually unify all the time after primaries. We get behind one another's candidates. That's real unity, not the enforced unity where the corporations rule us all. Don't believe the hype. Go vote tomorrow. Okay, now, not done, one more. Okay, now we turn to the Trump clowns. So you remember the famous Trump Tower meeting? That's where Donald Trump Jr., Manafort, who's the campaign manager for Trump at that time, and Kushner all go and meet with a Russian lawyer. They were told in emails, especially Donald Trump Jr., ahead of time, this is a lawyer connected to the Russian government and they have dirt on Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump Jr. responded, love it. They take the meeting thinking they might be getting some help from a foreign government, which is illegal, but apparently they loved it. So they all go to the meeting. Now, as it turns out, we believe that the Russians did not give them the information in that meeting. They walk out frustrated, but it was their intent. Now, whether that's illegal or not, because they did not receive the information, that can be sorted out later by an investigation. But what do the Trump people do because they can't help themselves? When confronted with this meeting, they immediately lie.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
And they go, oh, no, that meeting was about adoption. It was about adoption. About the Russians helping us with Hillary Clinton? No way, no, just about adoption. Of course, that turns out to be completely not true. The reason why the adoption is part of this at all is because the things that the Russians wanted in return for giving them dirt on Hillary Clinton was to lift the sanctions on Russian oligarchs, who are all allies of Vladimir Putin. And because we put those sanctions on, the Russians turned around and said, oh yeah, we're not gonna let you adopt Russian babies anymore. That'll show you. That's why you hear the talk of adoption. It doesn't have anything to do with anything else. It really has everything to do with the sanctions that we put on Russia that Russia wanted lifted in return for helping Donald Trump. So that's why they don't want it coming out. Now here's the problem, among many others. So the meeting itself is a problem. Then the secondary problem is how the Trump team responds. The Trump team responds by saying, okay, that was just about adoption. And okay, who wrote that letter? Don Trump Jr. wrote that response. You sure? Because it seemed like it was crafted by Donald Trump himself, the president, on Air Force One, according to all the reports. Nope, it was just his son. In fact, back then, the attorney for the president, Jay Sekulow, said, that was written by Donald Trump Jr., and I'm sure with consultation with his lawyer, that wasn't written by the president. They were very clear about that. In fact, here's another quote from Sekulow. The president did not draft a response. The response came from Donald Trump Jr., and I'm sure in consultation with his lawyer. Let me say this, but I do want to be clear that the president was not involved in the drafting of the statement and did not issue the statement. It came from Donald Trump Jr. Oops. Now, they're going to walk that back in a second, but hold before we get to that. Then there was an answer in the middle from Sarah Huckabee Sanders. So Sarah Huckabee Sanders asked about this last year, said this.
According to the Washington Post, the president tried to change the narrative of what went down in John Jr.'s meeting with the Russian lawyer. Can you address that story and tell us, did the president really try to do that?
Look, the statement that Don Jr. issued is true. There's no inaccuracy in the statement. The president weighed in as any father would based on the limited information that he had. This is all discussion, frankly, of no consequence.
Can you clarify the degree to which the president weighed in?
He certainly didn't dictate, but, you know, like I said, he weighed in, offered suggestion like any father would do.
So there, Sarah Huckabee says, well, that whole not writing it, he might have weighed in, okay? But he definitely did not dictate it. Well, funny that you say that, because now we find out that in January, the Trump lawyers wrote to Special Counsel Robert Mueller saying this, and this is the same Jay Sekulow and John Dowd, who's no longer with the Trump legal team, but was back in January. They wrote this, quote, "The president dictated a short but accurate response on behalf of his son." Oops. I guess that would be the first way that he's a dictator. So it turns out, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, you were not telling the truth. Neither was Sekulow. Clearly you said he didn't dictate it, and clearly now the Trump legal team, not fake news, not the New York Times, not the Washington Post, the Trump legal team says, oh yeah, yep, he dictated the letter. It was his letter. It was the president's letter. So they're gonna ask Sarah Huckabee Sanders about that today. Let's see what her response is.
You said last August that the president did not dictate the statement about the Trump Tower meeting during the campaign, but the lawyers wrote to the special counsel that the president did dictate that statement. What's the reason for that discrepancy?
Like you said, this is from a letter from the outside counsel, and I direct you to them to answer that question. Deborah.
Information?
Once again, you're referencing a letter that came directly from outside counsel, and I would refer you to them to answer that question.
Yeah, outside counsel wrote that letter, but you're the one who said he didn't dictate it, and now they're saying he did dictate the letter. So that's kind of on you, isn't it? In fact, they asked her again, this time the Washington Post.
If you're saying the one thing from the podium that it wasn't dictated by the president, and his lawyers are saying something entirely different, contradicting you, how are we supposed to know what to believe? How can we believe what you're saying from the podium if his lawyers are saying it's entirely inaccurate?
Once again, I can't comment on a letter from the president's outside counsel. I direct you to them to answer it. John?
But Sarah, the words are literally, you said he did not dictate. The lawyers said he did. What is it?
I'm not going to respond to a letter from the president's outside counsel. We've purposely walled off, and I would refer you to them for comment. John?
So, in fact, you did say it, and now you don't want to answer it because you're embarrassed because it was yet another lie that you had. By the way, one of the reporters there was Jordan Fabian from The Hill, not Washington Post. Wanted to clarify that. Okay, now we actually haven't gotten to my favorite video. So you now clearly see with your own eyes that Sarah Huckabee Sanders lied about it, the president's lawyer initially lied about it. And by the way, to be fair to them, why do they lie? Because Trump tells them to. Trump goes, oh, I got this. We're just going to deny it. We're going to strongly deny it, okay? And then later, they're like, okay, yeah, but Mr. President, now we have to write a letter to the special counsel, and that's really serious. If we lie there, we could be in a lot of legal trouble. So, and they have witnesses saying you wrote the letter. Okay, we strongly accept it. I dictated the letter, no problem, okay? Now go tell them to do the other lie, or okay? And he puts them in these impossible positions. So how is Rudy Giuliani, his new lawyer, going to get out of this? You're gonna love this quote, watch.
I mean, this is the reason you don't let the president testify. If, you know, our recollection keeps changing, or we're not even asked a question, and somebody makes an assumption. In my case, I made an assumption. Then we corrected it, and I got it right out as soon as it happened.
Well, our recollection keeps changing. Oh, is that how it works? So I love that because, wait a minute, wouldn't your recollection be way better when you first dictated the letter? Oh yeah, it would, right? Except that's when you lied about it. And then you did your middle of the road lie when your recollection again would have been better because it was closer to the event. Now, once you find out, oh, they have proof that you wrote the letter. Well, you know, it's not that we're lying, it's that our recollection keeps changing. Even if you're a Trump voter, you can't see that lie. You see it clear as day. Gee, I wonder why they're lying about all this. I wonder if they actually were trying to collude with the Russians. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, more shenanigans from the Trump White House. And then Democrats try to break in to a detention center. And I love that story, and good job on their part. And of course, the Trump team says, no, these are secret detention centers where we're holding kids. Senators are not allowed in. Wow. All right, we'll tell you about that when we come back. You're about to watch what we call an extended clip of the Young Turks. And the reality is it's somewhere in the middle. It's a little longer than our YouTube clips, but it's actually shorter than the whole 2-hour show, which you can get if you're a member. You can get it ad-free, and make sure you catch every news story we do that day. You're gonna love it as a full show. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Thanks for watching. All right, back on the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur Ana Kasparian with you guys. And I've got a bunch of tweets, including this one I really shouldn't read because it makes no sense at all. This is actually from YouTube Super Chat. Nick Faith writes in, Anna's salary deserves to be doubled. She's amazing.
Oh my God, I thought it was gonna be something really mean. Thanks.
Okay, wrong again, Bob. But anyway, all right, Kurt for Congress 2018 writes in on YouTube Super Chat. Of all the candidates in my race, no one has spoken out against corruption as much as I have. After 10 years of listening to progressive ideas, I'm the best prepared to face McCarthy at Kurt for Congress. Now, look, YouTube Super Chat helps the show. I don't know if that's true, but he wrote it in. And I read it.
And you read it.
Okay, and I'm just telling you that's what he wrote.
He reports, you decide.
That's right. Look, Burgundy will read anything in the YouTube Super Chat. Okay, all right, real quick. Renito6 says, call my sis now Twitter, #TYT Live to talk to us live during the show on Twitter, but use YouTube Super Chat, that's better. Okay, anyway, called my sister in Long Beach, California to vote for Allison. I'm sad to report that she did not know that there was an election happening this Tuesday. Call your California friends and make sure they know that Tuesday is an election day. 1,000,000% right. Look, the donations still help, no question about it. The volunteers still help. In fact, the volunteers are the most important here as we go into election day tomorrow. We got to get out the vote. But whatever you do, make sure that you tell everyone you know in California that there's an election to vote. And speaking of which, so there's going to be an election night party at Allison's basically impromptu headquarters, and it is going to be start at 8:30 p.m. because the polls close at 8 p.m. in California. In order to RSVP, this is a people's fundraiser, $27 to get in, and it helps the campaign today if you do that. AllisonHartson.com/June5. That's AllisonHartson.com/June and the number 5. And so make sure that you're at that party. If she wins, it's going to be amazing. I want you to be there, and I will get there at the end of the night as well, so check that out. All right, and finally, Davey M says, nice haircut, Cenk.
Oh, you did get a haircut.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, Davey. Okay, that one I can get behind. All right. Okay. So many more, but we got to go. All right, yes. What's next, Anna?
All right. Israeli Defense Forces shot a 21-year-old medic, and this story is getting quite a bit of attention because of the fact that she was a medic who was clearly wearing a vest that medics wear, and she was assisting protesters who had been wounded because of their protests near the Gazan border. Her name is Razan al-Najjar. And this story is difficult to even report. We're about to show you a video of who she was and what she believed in just a moment. But to give you some more context into this story, al-Najjar's death comes after weeks of protests, Palestinian protests to be specific, known as the Great March of Return, during which more than 111 to be specific, Palestinian protesters have been killed by Israeli fire. Now, she was shot by a sniper, and she is the second medic to die as a result of these protests and Israeli forces targeting the protesters. People were suffering from the tear gas. A man was right near the fence and was calling out, "Come help me, come help me." He was close to the fence. Razan went to help him. That's according to a nurse and a friend of Razan's. Now, her mother spoke to the media about this, and the quotes are just heartbreaking. She said the following: "I was afraid for her, but Razan told us that she wasn't afraid. She felt obliged to help, and was clearly wearing a medical vest. And she was also quoted as saying, "I'm protected by my vest. God is with me. I'm not afraid."
It turned out neither one of those are true.
So with that said, the next video, for me personally, it was difficult to watch, but I want to share, who Razan was with our audience.
And when we come back from the video, I'm going to tell you how this is not an accident, and the Israeli Defense Forces are doing it on purpose, and I have overwhelming proof of that.
هذا حب انتمائنا للوطن، يعني هذا عمل إنساني ما بدنا عليه مقابل، إحنا بدنا نقدر تعبنا الله بس، مش مستعد يعني ما بدنا مقابل من أي حدا، لا رواتب ولا توظيف بدناش. كتير سألوا بابا بنتك هاي طب ما بتاخد راتب هيك، حكى لهم أنا بنتي بفتخر فيها إنها بتقدم إشي إنساني لأبناء وطني، يعني كمان بنت، وخصوصي إحنا المرأة عنا منتقدة كتير في المجتمع، بس المجتمع لازم يتقبلنا غصبا عنه، لو بدوش يتقبلنا بإرادته بيتقبلنا غصبا عنه، لأن إحنا عنا قوة أكتر من أي راجل. القوة اللي إحنا بنمتلكها، القوة اللي استرجلت فيها كأول مسعفة في الأسبوع الأول، بتحدى ألاقيها عند أي شخص يعني.
So I hear from those in the right wing that they're looking to liberate women in the Muslim world. Well, she seemed liberated, and she wanted more liberation for her people. She wanted to be strong and do it in the right way, peaceful protests, and help the people who are suffering. And that's why she's a medic. And so what's the proof? Over 200 medical professionals have been injured by Israeli attacks, mainly sniper fire. You think the Israeli Defense Forces are that bad? They accidentally shot 200 medics? No, they see their vests, and their vests are very clear. The second medic who died, on the same day, there's a really powerful interview from Democracy Now! About it. In fact, we'll try to find it for you and put it in the description box below if you're watching anywhere, YouTube or Facebook later, okay? If you're watching live, go look it up. Amy Goodman interviews a doctor who also got shot on that same day, and he's heartbroken because he thinks he might have been able to save that medic if he hadn't been shot earlier. And in that case, they're hundreds of yards away from the border. And he thought, well, I'm a doctor and I'm safe and I'm from the West, right? Mm-hmm. And we've got all these people that are clearly medical. They go into the field holding up their medical ID with their medical vest and their hands up in the air. So the Israeli Defense Forces, the snipers can clearly see who they are. And by the way, it's snipers shooting them. If they were a real danger, would they have to have snipers? No, they have the snipers that shoot these medical professionals oftentimes from hundreds of yards away. That's several football fields. Those soldiers are not in danger from these medical professionals. They're shooting them and sometimes executing them. And part of the reason is, now those are facts. My guess as to why is to intimidate them. Don't go anywhere near here. Don't even think about protesting our iron-fisted rule and occupation of you. Understand that you live in a prison and you will never represent yourself. And if you try to just help your fellow man who's been injured in the protest, we'll still kill you.
So also keep in mind that oftentimes when you hear about casualties on the Palestinian side, the argument that you hear from the Israeli government is that they pose a risk. They have weapons. They have armed kites that they fly in, across the border that could injure people.
They had one kite on fire. A kite.
I know.
A kite.
I know. But
okay, what a joke.
So in this case, though, you were talking about a medic who has no weapon. She is literally there to provide some medical help or a response to those who have been injured as a result of the aggression on the Israeli side, right? So she sees people that are injured. She wants to help them out. She's essentially a first responder in many cases. And you're right, Cenk, they do approach with their medic ID in hand to make it clear. I am a medic. I'm not here to cause any problems. I'm here to help my people. And also, medical supplies and medical help in Gaza, it's just not easy to come by, right? And so she's not doing this for money, as she mentioned in that video. She's putting her life at risk. And the thing that really stood out to me in that video where she's talking to the media was, just she's young, and I'm sure she's seen brutality and how cruel humans can be. But she still believed that, hey, if I'm a medic and I don't pose a risk, no one's gonna target me. I'm safe, my vest will protect me.
You know what the irony of that is that they actually assumed more faith in Israel than was warranted. They thought the Israelis won't shoot the doctors. Well, you were wrong, they did. And they keep on shooting them. The interview I'm referring to from Amy Goodman is from earlier. Now this is happening again this weekend. In fact, Rami Abu Jazar, another medical professional, and he showed up to defend her in crutches. Why? He was also shot. They're mass shooting of medical professionals by the Israeli Defense Forces. And then Fox News comes on here and in America and goes, Hegseth said, I mean, are the children, because children are also killed. He said, the children, are they really innocent? Like that. Because they don't care. I mean, look at the preposterous things that they make up to make it seem like it's a real threat. Kite is not a code term. It's not a drone. It's not a newly designed thing. It's an actual kite like kids fly. They've got almost no weapons on the other side. Every once in a while, the right wing, both here and in Israel, will say, some of them have rocks that they put into a sling like David against Goliath. Oops, I didn't mean that part. And then they try to reach it to a fence that's 700 yards away, 7 football fields away. So we had to have our snipers execute them. And by the way, the guys with the stones are a tiny minority. Most of them are 40,000 protesters showed up in the earlier protests. Almost all civilians. And the people that were killed and wounded, almost all civilians. Yes, there were some few people that threw rocks and burned tires. How feckless, how ridiculous. And we say all the time they shouldn't do that because it doesn't help anything. It takes you away whatever moral high ground you have when you do any act of violence. I know, however tiny it is, right? Don't give them any excuses, but it doesn't matter. They don't need excuses because they're shooting the doctors.
So I actually want to respond to that because I couldn't understand why these protests, some of the protesters would put their lives at risk to cross the border, right? Knowing that you have Israeli snipers ready to shoot you at any moment. And I heard this incredible interview with one Palestinian protester who said, look, I was born in Palestine. I was born in Gaza. I have never left Gaza because I'm not able to leave Gaza. I am locked in Gaza. And so the idea of crossing the border, even for a second, is a small victory. Even if I lose my life, it's a small victory. I mean, think about what your life must be like if you're willing to die just to cross a border into a different part of the country.
If you live in Israel or you're a supporter of Israel anywhere, you really think it helps Israel to shoot doctors and nurses in cold blood, to have your snipers shoot them? My God, if my country did that, I would be mortified and I would fight with every fiber of my being against that. In fact, my country, America, does support that and I fight against it. Any decent person would say, for God's sake, not only because you care about the morality of the situation and the humanity of Palestinians who are fellow human beings, but because you care about Israel, for the rest of the world to see you as these people who shoot doctors and nurses at a mass scale. How does that help Israel? It's a terrible blight on Israel's record. Do what it was originally intended to do. If you think the original idea of the people who came there, and people get into endless fights about their original intent, but do you really think the original intent as they were escaping the Holocaust was to start an open air prison where they would occupy other people, millions of them, for decades on end? That was not their intent. Their intent was to be free. But the occupation, it has both imprisoned the Palestinians and the Israelis.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, some news out of the US, including what some Democratic senators are doing in response to Trump's immigration policies.
Thanks for watching what I hope was a lovely edition of the Young Turks. Now, you know that is 2 of the 5 segments that we do because that's free. We want to have you support independent media and come watch the whole show that we do every day. That's 5 segments overall, no ads at all. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Come become a member. Thanks for watching either way. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.